So we have a 9/16 ratcheting box wrench. We can also use a 9/16 deep well socket in exchange for this tool, but this will work just fine. We have a 4mm hex driver. You can also use a 4mm ratcheting driver as shown here. That's what I'll be using today. We have some side snips, some zip ties that will be used for cable management, medium strength Loctite. This is blue Loctite that I'm using here, and a microfiber cloth, a clean microfiber cloth. We have the Casia G side mount bracket. That's the one that I'll be demonstrating today. The Casia G itself. 2 U-bolts sized for the pole that we are using. These ones are sized for a 2-inch Schedule 40 pipe. We have 8 M6 by 8mm bolts here, and then we have 1 Ethernet cable sized to the appropriate length with our waterproof bayonet connector on the end. Pole in place here with our power supply already installed. This pole needs to be mounted in such a way that it is within 5 degrees of vertical in all axes. The pole that we're showing here is a Schedule 42-inch pipe. This is about the minimum diameter pipe that we'll want to use for mounting purposes. Anything smaller than that will have too much flex and the potential to deform. The pole is mounted within 5 degrees of vertical here. Within 1 degree is our preferred mounting orientation. We can show that the pole is mounted vertical using something like an inclinometer app. This one here shows that we're within 0 degrees there. And then I guess we'd have to roll around here, within 1 degrees there. That's totally sufficient for our purposes. And we are ready to begin the install on this pole. So the first thing that we're going to be doing here is mounting the side mount bracket to the pole. We'll use that as a base to then install the Casia G on. When we're mounting any of these brackets and threading on any of these screws, we're going to want to ensure that we use that Loctite to ensure that none of these nuts back out over time. So on our U-bolts here, we'll put a small dab of thread locker on the end of each thread. So we'll be attaching the U-bolt that threads around the pole. This other half of the U-bolt then slides onto those threads, and then this will be the surface that we mate our bracket up against. Right now we're just looking to get these roughly close. We'll tighten them up fully once we have both U-bolts in place and we're able to level it. We're going to want to ensure that these channels are roughly centered, and we want to ensure that the bracket does not tilt or pitch forward or back during the installation. So what we will do is snug up our U-bolts so that they are hand tight, loose enough that we still have room to shift things around, but now snug enough that it's mostly stable. At this point in time, we're gonna want to center the U-bolts in the channel, and then we'll take out our inclinometer and use that to assess the pitch of the bracket from side to side here. So we'll set our inclinometer on a stable or level surface here, and then adjust this until it's completely vertical. Within 1 degree is our goal for this procedure. Once this is in place, we'll take our 9/16 box wrench and then fully tighten the bolts of the assembly. we can lay this on top and we can see that we're still within 1 degree of level, which is our goal for this procedure. Within 5 degrees is acceptable, but it's easy to get within 1 degree for this process, so that is the goal. Now that we have our side mount fully installed, we can set the Casia G on top of it. When we go to mount our Casia G, if you look at the top of the Casia G, there is an arrow on the sun shield, the top face of the enclosure. This arrow points towards the heading of the device. So this camera under the arrow is the one that will be pointing out the front of the device. This is important when we go to set the position of the device. Now when installing the mount, or when installing Casia on the bracket, on the underside of the Casia G, you can see that there is a fan hole here. This is the inlet for the fan that is in the heatsink on the bottom side of the system. We want the fan inlet to point towards the back of the mount. It will only fit in one direction, so that makes it convenient, but we want to ensure that this sets in place such that the fan is here towards the back side of the bracket. This will be able to rest in place while we go to fix it down, so we have no concerns about this falling anywhere. It's going to sit in a recess. We're now going to attach the bolts that will fix it in place permanently. So for that, we'll use our M6 bolts that were shown earlier. Again, we're going to want to use that medium strength thread lock when tightening these in place, or when fastening these, just to ensure that they don't back out over time. So to tighten those down, we can use any M4 driver. For this installation, I'm going to be using a ratcheting driver just because it makes it a little bit easier to access the different parts of the system. We will be threading these M6 bolts up through the bottom of the mounting bracket and into the holes on the bottom side of the Casia system. Now that all of our bolts are in place, we're going to want to go through and snug each of them down. These do not need to be overly tightened, just snug is fine. The next thing that we're going to do here is affix our cables to the pole so that they are less likely to be damaged during the lifetime of the system. We want them neatly tied to the pole as it runs down. So what we'll do is we'll bend them towards the pole here, and we're going to want to ensure that we have a little bit of slack in this cable right here, just so that this isn't being pulled too taut. So we're going to want this to run down, have a slight bend, and then run towards the pole. Our hardware is mounted in place and our cables are routed. In order to supply power to Casia, we just need to supply power to the power supply box here. There is no on or off switch on the Casia system. So if all of our energized checks are successful, we can also check that the system is connecting to the internet via flight deck or via your ground control station app. Once all of those checks are successful, the last thing that we're going to want to do while we still have physical access to the system is to wipe down all of our exterior surfaces, especially our glass, using the microfiber cloth. We want to ensure that there are no bits of debris from the installation process that are on those glass surfaces that may cause obstruction of the system.